The problem with that is that that probably really does tank the economy in the way that it creates enough uncertainty where capital markets freeze up and liquidity just absolutely goes away. And again, liquidity's been shrinking for the last 18 months anyways, so it'd get even worse.
Hey guys, welcome back to Library of Wealth. Today we have Chamath on the All In podcast discussing the current state of the market and the ever-growing concerns over what's coming in 2023. While the market braces itself, the consensus view is the next 8 weeks will be crucial, as the bill to suspend the nation's debt until 2025 was just passed. Chamath emphasizes that if allocators of capital are unsure about the direction of rates and inflation, everything can shut down, which is detrimental for the economy. He also predicts that the Fed funds rate increase could be a sign that the market is overvalued. Let's check out the latest interview with Chamath as he gives us his market outlook and what we can expect in the next few months. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
August 5th, 2011, the S&P downgraded the United States from AAA to AA+. You know what happened? Absolutely nothing. I think that these third-party credit rating agencies are not particularly that accurate and sophisticated. They don't know anything that you don't know. They're not getting access to...
Moody's gave SVB an A rating the week before it went into receivership.
This is my exact point.
Well done.
This is my exact point. None of these companies know what they're doing. These companies are in the business of putting a letter on a document and then selling access to that document. So if you're going to trust these guys to know what they're saying, either right or wrong, independent of what side, you are outsourcing your decision-making to the wrong body. So whether it's S&P, Fitch, or Moody's, I would tell you to ignore it and come to your own conclusion. I think that this budget ceiling thing is happening now every couple of years. So under the 14th Amendment, the President of the United States has in their discretion the ability to make sure that the United States can pay their debts. And that wasn't necessarily thought of as a way to work around the debt ceiling impasse. But because Congress refuses to pass any structural laws that allow the budget to ebb and flow with tax receipts, we get caught in this situation, again, roughly every handful of years. So what Biden could do is he could say, the 14th Amendment gives me the right, I'm going to pass a budget via executive order. From a game theory perspective, what that does is it forces Republicans to sue Biden, take him to the Supreme Court and say this is unconstitutional. The problem with that is that that probably really does tank the economy in the way that it creates enough uncertainty where capital markets freeze up and liquidity just absolutely goes away. And again, liquidity's been shrinking for the last 18 months anyways, so it'd get even worse. So I think the brinksmanship right now between McCarthy and Biden is basically that veiled threat. If Biden effectively isn't going to get something done, I think he's going to test the 14th Amendment. Now, if the 14th Amendment turns out to be a reasonable way in order to pass a budget, the good news is, not just for Biden, but for any future president, including Republican presidents, will not have to be held hostage by Congress. They will, in the 11th hour, be able to pass a budget that works. The implications of that, though, is that now you will not get consensus, and whatever's happening in that moment, you'll see more of. So if you have a spending president, they'll just continue to spend. And if you have an austerity president, they'll continue to cut. And that'll have implications on either side.
I think it's too late to invoke the 14th Amendment. They're going to have to raise the debt ceiling. That being said, I think they're going to be able to. Reuters had a report this morning that they're only 72 billion apart now in their positions, which is a relatively small amount. So my guess is they're going to work this out. Now, what should the fate of the debt limit be moving forward? I mean, we spend the money and then argue about whether we're going to pay the credit card bill.
I just think that you guys don't psychologically understand how to get what you want. I think the best way to get what you want, which I would want too, which is a healthy economy where there's accountability for spending, is to not look at expenses. And all of this talk is always about expenses, but to look at revenue and limit revenue more drastically. And I think the best way to limit revenue dramatically at the federal and state level is to just minimize taxation as much as possible. And I think that is something that Democrats and Republicans have a hard time fighting. Nobody wants to raise their hand and say, I want new taxes. Nobody says that, right? And I think that if you attach that to some sort of spending guidelines, like what David says with a sensible foreign policy, you just end up spending a lot less. You want to fight a foreign war? Okay, great. Well, you know what? It's part of the existing budget. Let's go figure out why we want to do it. We want to have more accountability in defense spending. Okay, well, look, the defense budget is half of what it used to be because we just have half the revenue. If you were a homeowner and you got a mortgage in the 80s, you were paying 12, 14, 15, 16%. If when rates kept going down, you or the people around you didn't have the common sense to refinance that, that was negligence. Similarly, we're in a position today to refinance our debt wall and push out these maturities past 100 plus years. We are the only country that has a viable, stable economy that looks like it can still continue to thrive at scale. Take advantage of that. You lose nothing by giving us the optionality, generating some 100-year debt, refinancing a bunch of this short-term stuff. And then second, inflation helps us. And it helps us because it allows us to inflate the value of these dollars that allows us to pay off our short-term maturities. So these are two practical, simple things that are uncontroversial that should happen today. And then separately, I think you need to look at minimizing revenue. And then you can cut expenses. But if you flip them around, I'm just telling you, it's not like I want any of this to happen, but I'm telling you nothing will change and you guys will still be crying wolf. In 5 years, it'll still be the same. It'll just be a different debt to GDP number that gives you anxiety. I think what you're saying is inaccurate. This is my point. I think it's important to get the facts right. What you are saying is not true. They do an accounting. That accounting sucks. It shows that there's tons of waste. Nothing changes. So now what do you want to do, David? Is the real question. What do you want to do knowing that?
We shouldn't spend on things that don't have a positive return. This is my point. That's why we're now in this very difficult situation.
That's not happening. Now, what would you like to do?
Well, the reason it doesn't happen is because the way that politics decides things has nothing to do with the merits of it. It has to do with special interests and lobbying.
I'm not debating that. I agree. I'm just saying, what do you guys want to do now? Just reality for a second.
But this is why I think our education system has fundamentally betrayed the country, because we just keep teaching people that somehow the government's going to solve all these problems, when really it's just a product of special interest lobbying for things. And that's why we perpetuate these programs that don't work.
I think the best way to think about government spending is that in every dollar, there's probably 15 or 20 cents that actually does some good. There's probably 15 to 20 cents that's on the margins, break even. And then the rest of it, which is half of it, is wasted.
Chamath highlights that taxpayers are ultimately responsible for the increased spending that is taking place. He believes that interest rates will definitely be higher and will persist for a longer period, as the market is still uncertain about whether this is just a temporary bump in the road or the beginning of a recession. Chamath also points out the cash flow versus earnings for companies, indicating that there is currently a significant gap between what companies are reporting as earnings and what's actually in their bank accounts. This suggests that in the broader economic landscape, things may not be what they seem. What do you think about Chamath's economic outlook for this year? And how will the recent debt ceiling bill getting passed affect the stock, crypto, and housing markets in 2023? Comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Library of Wealth. We'll see you in the next video.